Okay, so this will be a quick comparison between the newly launched KBEAR Lark, the KZ EDX, which is my favorite earphone of the year currently because of the price to performance it gives, and the pretty much the most popular IEM I pretty much have seen on this doing this hobby really is the Blon BL-03. And I'm gonna refer a bit to the new BL-01 as well that has been launched as the upgrade to the BL-03. So the thing here you'll be looking at first is the build quality. In terms of build quality, immediately I'll have to give it to the Blons. The Blons are made of metal, so you probably would get a better lifespan out of the Blondes. That's if you don't get a failed driver in the shell, but if everything works out right, the Blondes have a better build quality overall. The second best build quality is the KBEAR Lark. The KBEAR Lark is the second best build quality, has a back face metal plate with regular KZ like shell, and the final one, which is this one is made of plastic, so this is not really built too well, but I feel it's going to last. That's the KZ EDX. The KZ EDX is a relatively cheap model, so you don't expect the best build quality. So in terms of build quality, the Blondes win. Second is the KBEAR Lark, and third is the KZ EDX. In terms of accessories you're getting in the box, the Lark wins hands down. The Lark has a better box, has better accessories, has better cable than all of the other sets. The next for accessories is the KZ EDX. The KZ EDX has at least the tips that comes with the KZ can be used with the EDX without you needing to upgrade. But if you can see, guys, I'm using a very special tip for the EDX. The EDX is so special that I got a special ear tip for it. So this is a wide bore ear tip, and I'll explain why I'm using a very massive wide bore ear tip for the KZ EDX. I've never tried this for another earphone, but there is a need for this setup that I did for the EDX, and I'll explain that once I'm talking about the sound signatures of all these models. So like I said, in terms of accessories, the Lark is the best, followed by the EDX, then followed by the Blondes. Then in terms of cable quality, the Lark has the best cable, followed by the EDX from KZ, then finally the Blondes. The Blondes don't really have any good cable, honestly. Once you just get the Blondes, just slap on a new cable on it, honestly, because the cable that comes with the Blondes are horrible, to be honest. Now the sound signature for all three are very different. Now it depends on what you're looking for in sound signature, but personally the best sound signature I feel everyone that has these three models would prefer, if they have the right gear to play the right contents on them, is the EDX. The EDX has the best sound signature out of these three. A close second would be the Blondes, then followed by the Lark. The Lark is very good, don't get me wrong. Even though it's the third in this ranking, it's very good, but I will explain why these two are better. Not just better, but the EDX actually plays at a much more higher price than its price suggests. So first of all, this is a bright set, this is a warm set, this is a neutral to warm, neutral. I would just say a neutral set, because at times the KZ EDX presents sound in a bright manner when it needs to be bright, and present it warm when it needs to be warm. That's so I'm not gonna call it neither here. It's a really neutral set, so let it be what it is. So in terms of bass performance, the best bass performance here is For me, and I'm not talking of bass quantity, I'm talking of bass quality and bass quality overall, is the EDX. The EDX has the best bass quality for both movies and music, and I'm still really challenging any other earphone to actually try to beat this for movies. This sounds incredible for movies, hands down. I've not heard any other earphone compete with this for movies yet. So bass is fantastic for this. Music sounds organic and punchy. It's not boomy like the Blonds. Now, if you're talking on quantity of bass, you'll be looking at the Blonds. The Blonds has the most quantity out of the three. The problem with the quantity is that it's muddy. It's muddy except you start fiddling with tips, and even fiddling with tips don't really help that much. The sound signature of the Blon is warm, so it tends to be a bit muddy when you play content with it. That's the bass, especially when you're playing it at a higher volume. But so many people may like that muddy sound sometimes. But in terms of bass, after the EDX, I probably say I prefer the Lark next for bass. The reason why is that as much as this has more quantity than this in bass, this has much more better clean bass overall than the Blondes. So bass is number one is the EDX, number two is the Lark, and number three is the Blondes. Now, as for mids, the best for me mids is this. Mids here is the smoothest, most detailed and non-sibilant out of the whole three. Mids for me is a 4.5 out of a 5 stars, almost a 5 star. And honestly, the mids on this, if I actually bought this for $100 to $200 and I played the same sound on a $200 set, I'll probably tell you it's worth it, because honestly, this, like I said, the EDX plays at a much more higher price. Anybody that listens to the EDX that actually owns a more expensive earphone, I'm not talking about somebody that's getting into a hobby and probably buys EDX and is geeking out with. If you already own different earphones and have different price ranges of earphones, you will understand what I'm saying, that the KZ EDX plays at a substantially higher level than most other earphones. So the bass is perfect, the mids is smooth and non-sibilant on it. Now, if you really want to get the best mids from the KZ EDX, you need my hack. Pretty much it's my hack, so I don't know, you guys can try it out. Buy what we call a wide ball tip. So what it does is that it exposes the entire driver and it doesn't go into your ears. If you guys can see, I'm using a very wide ball tip. This can never enter my ear. So what it does is that it rests on my ears, so it's almost like an earbud like feel, but it's still an in-ear monitor that I don't know how to explain it. It's in my ears, but it's not inside my ears. So it rests on my ears, so giving me no fatigue whatsoever. It's like an earbud like style. Still gives me the same bass response and better, because the reason why I prefer this is because of the sound stage. The sound stage is a lot better with this particular wide ball tip. As for the KBEAR Lark, the Lark, I'm using a very vocal centric ear tip. I'm not using the stock tip that came with it. I'm using a vocal tip. So for mids, I would probably say Blondes beat out this for mids, because the mids on this is harsh at a higher volume, and you know the 4K upper mids is quite harsh. It has a sibilance to it. So the mids is not too good for me on this set, but I prefer the mids for this over this. That's why I said that pretty much these guys are almost like competing at the same level, because I prefer the bass on the Lark over the Blondes, while I prefer the mids on the Blonde over the Lark. And so pretty much that. Now, as for the treble for me personally, I prefer the EDX. The EDX does not extend as high as the Lark in treble department, but it doesn't need to, because the more it extends like this, the more it becomes sharp, piercing and annoying. So the KZ EDX has a way of rolling off that upper treble to make your sound very smooth and lands very well without giving you that harsh tone, that harsh, very harsh tone, pretty much. So this I prefer, honestly. I prefer the tonality of the, for me, I prefer the tonality of the KZ EDX for treble. Then as for the next, the treble, for me, I'll probably pick the Lark. The reason why, even though the Lark has a very shouty treble, it's better detailed than the Blons. The Blons don't really have good treble. Like, it rolls off really quickly, and there are some information that you're going to be missing when you're listening to content on the Blons because of that roll off. This has better extension than the Blons in treble, so already you're going to be missing a lot of information when you're using the Blons. This has better extension than this, but doesn't have the smoothness that this has, making this the best treble. But this is very good as well, so I'll prefer this. So in terms of ranking, I would probably give this a 4.5 out of 5 star, making it an S tier earphone. Why this is a second, not a close second, because this is really playing at a very more expensive level than the Lark. And honestly, I wouldn't say it's a fair competition, because this is a third of the price of the Lark, but plays a lot better than it. But I can understand, not every other earphone would compete with the EDX. The EDX was just a very lucky set out of the KZ lineup. It was lucky, it was tuned well, and it has built on that luck to actually become at least a very loved set by me and many people that have purchased it. The Lark is my number 2 in the ranking, and that's because it beats out the Blon in the bass and treble department. So I'll pick it over the Blonds, even though I know the Blonds have more quantity of bass that I like for my movies. And if it is for movies, hands down, the Blonds beat out the Lark for movies. I've used the Blonds for movies. It's better than the Lark for movies, but the Lark is better overall in its tuning, generally, because of its resolving capability. At least if I'm going to mix and master, I probably would end up using the Lark over the Blonds. So that is my comparison between these 3 earphones. I will leave links to all 3. All 3 are good, but I will highly recommend the EDX. Buy as many as you can for this. This is an amazing set. Try to find a whiteboard tip on AliExpress to pair with it, so that you get the best performance out of it as well. So, and the next would be the KBEAR Lark. I'll leave a link for that as well. Then the final one would be the Blonds, if you are interested. Then I will also leave the BL-01, which is an upgrade to the BL-03, which has a better tuning than the BL-03. So that is my review of the 3 earphones. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please smash that like button, do subscribe to our channel, like our content, and I'm going to see you guys next time.